Yeah, what's good, y'all? It's your host, the one and only Dad Poppy, aka Los Courtside, back at it again with another video. As many of you probably know by now, the late great Kevin Samuels has passed away at the age of 57, and the internet has been ablaze over the weekend with the reports of his death coming out and a bunch of viral tweets happening of people celebrating his death and people going and having arguments about how other people have reacted to the news of his passing, uh, which has just been. I can't say that I'm surprised. It's 2022. The way that the internet goes nowadays, no matter who you are, no matter what it is, if it's a person of any note or clout or anything like that, and even not, when you die on the internet, there's always going to be somebody there to clown. There's always going to be somebody there to laugh. There's always going to be somebody to make light of that situation. I've seen viral tweets in which somebody says something, and then in response to that, somebody will bring up their dead relative that they had in their bio or some shit like that and make a joke about it. And it's just kind of the nature of the internet and people saying things and not having to deal with the consequences of disrespecting or disparaging anybody. So it is what it is. I wasn't really too moved by that, but it is very interesting the discourse that's been going on with the entire Kevin Samuels passing and his legacy and his impact that he's had on the internet. When I first came across Kevin Samuels was about, I want to say 5, 6 years ago. He's been on YouTube for a long time, like a really, really long time. I believe I was still in college when I came across a Kevin Samuels video, and he was talking about dressing proper, wearing suits and ties, the different type of colognes to wear and things like that. It didn't really resonate with me at that particular point in my life. I was still pretty young. I wasn't really professional, career minded at that point yet. And so he kind of just seemed like a fuddy-duddy type of dude where you could kind of see what he was saying and you got to understand that his advice had some merit, but that wasn't exactly how I wanted to present myself and go about uh, dressing and acting and going about in the world. And so further on in his YouTube career, as he's kind of made new reiterations of his content, he went from talking about male improvement and male's fashion and colognes and business and things like that. He started, I guess, to become more of a relationship guru. Guru. That's one take, as some might say. Uh, and basically just kind of being that Simon Cowell, Gordon Ramsay role of being brutally honest to whoever he's talking to, and kind of being very witty and wry and on the nose and just very not even vulgar. Vulgar is not the word, but uh, it's his words cut deep because he's not putting no fluff. He was gonna give it to you straight. He's gonna let you know exactly what it was. Uh, the last few days, because of the way that the YouTube algorithm is, and with his death, and more people were looking him up, he was coming more and more into my recommendations, and I was able to come across a couple of videos that really kind of, I wouldn't even say changed my perspective because I had been knowledgeable on kind of his slant towards black men and black people in general, but I really got to get a better understanding of exactly how he felt and what his content was for and what his intentions were with his content. And just being able to see, because he's gotten a lot of flack for what he said about black women and oh he's mean, he was rude, he was disrespectful, and they're glad he's dead. But the thing about Kevin Samuels that I didn't even know was how much of a proponent he was of forwarding the black agenda for the community, not just for black men, for black women, but for black community as a whole to say, hey, you guys have value. Hey, we need to come harder. We need to come correct. We need to get our business and our finances in order. We need to present ourselves in a certain type of way, not because we have to conform to a white society, but because we have to understand the rules of the game that we're playing and the systems that we're in to excel so that we can one day make our own, so that we can have our own spaces, so that we are self reliant on our own media and our own culture and our own business ventures instead of wanting to just be invited and accepted in other spaces, which made a lot of sense to me. And I wish that that was something that he was more well known for instead of the bluntness of his reviews and telling women that they're average at best and what he went viral for. But it's the internet, and you understand that the nonsense, the fuckery, the bullshit, that's the stuff that always goes further than the stuff that is really prosperous, is the stuff that really is content and that can stick with you. We want the fast food. We don't want the steak and potatoes. We want the Doritos. We want the Burger King and the McDonald's and all that. And that's what I feel like those dating videos, those critiques were. But he had some real meat and potatoes in his content. He was talking about some real things. He was telling there was one video that he had in which he was saying that as black people, we should not feel uncomfortable being in rooms with successful white people, and that we need to do everything in our power to be in those rooms and not to be invited and allowed, but to be in that room by force. He said there was a quote in there that you take power, power is not given to you, and that's such a powerful quote. Not to be like what's the word I'm looking for? Redundant in saying that, but it was so powerful because I see a lot of time in our community that we have protests and we have these discourses and Black Lives Matter and whatnot, and where they say, well, what can we do to make our society more accepting of black people? What can we do to make our society more accepting of gay people or minorities? What can we do so that they stop killing us, so that they stop being oppressive to us? And the entire mentality, which there were other revolutionaries, and not to say that Kevin Samuels is revolutionary, but people like Malcolm X, people like Tupac, also reiterated this phrasing of you have to accumulate power, you have to take power to get the respect, to be able to defend yourself. It's not about you asking, it's not about you hoping that someone allows you to be in positions to benefit yourself, because no one's going to do that. It's all about self-preservation. You have to take, you have to conquer, you have to have a winning mentality, a conqueror's mentality when it comes to this life, when it comes to this society, and getting what you feel is owed to you, not asking for it, not asking for a spot at the table, pulling up to the table, stepping on that motherfucker, putting your knife into that shit and saying, "I'm here now, and there's nothing that nobody can do about it. And if you want to move me, but you can't move me." And that was just so true. It's so true when he says that. And the other things that he was discussing about being cognizant of how we're presented and being cognizant of your appearance and your image, not to conform again, but to know that your image has power. There's power in your how you're perceived. Perception is reality, and to take that more seriously and to understand the implications of a good image, having a strong perception can go so much further than if you don't take yourself seriously and if you don't present yourself in a way to 100% maximize your uh, your reputation and I don't want to say clout, but your appeal, just off of the strength that perception is reality. There's so many people that off of their looks prosper. There's so many people that off of their aesthetic have become millionaires, billionaires. We're seeing it with the Kardashians right now. We're seeing it with pretty much all celebrities. Their image is a such a vested interest. the entire there's an industry directly in relation to maintaining and propagating their image, which is marketing. And it's so powerful. When you're a presidential candidate, do you know how much money they spend so that they can understand how they're perceived? Every part about them is specified down to the T. I'm talking to the point where they're over there seriously considering the color of the tie that they're going to wear with their suit because it all matters. It all ties back into image and perception and how they can use that to their advantage so that they can be put into positions of power and so that they can accumulate more power so that they can be perceived in a certain type of way so that other people will treat them at a certain type of way and they can get the desired results that they want. Um, and so with Kevin Samuels passing, I hope that we have more conversations like that. I hope that there's more people that are going to be sharing that message and informing us and educating us on how to do that better because I feel like it's greatly important. And sometimes as a culture, as a community, there are lessons that we're not taught because it's not valued and we don't understand necessarily why it's so important because we're not in those positions to see how it plays out. And so if you don't understand how something ties into the big scheme of things, you're not going to take it as seriously. I had a tweet the other day when I was saying that why were we learning chemical equations in high school? We didn't use that for anything. And that's true for the most part. I don't use chemical equations in my day-to-day life at all. But if we're to say that I was a scientist of some sort or I was you know, developing drugs and medicine, things like that, then that would come more so into play. And then that's the bigger, grander scheme of it all, which is at my micro level of what I'm doing, it doesn't really mean much. But at a higher level in the hierarchy of things, that knowledge goes a lot further. So it sucks to know that a young, oh, well, not a young black man. I mean, he was 57 years old. That's too young to be dying. So I'm gonna say a young black man. He died before he was supposed to die, and it's sad that that happened. It's unfortunate, but what Kevin Samuels has done is going to have impact for years and years and years. And even though he only lived 57 years, his memory, his ideology is going to go on so much further, just like a Nipsey Hussle, in which his rhetoric, his movement continues on, and you still see people talking about the marathon continues and whatnot. And Kevin Samuels was just starting to break the cusp of the mainstream and interacting with rappers and other celebrities and being put in these positions in which he was really starting to break through and become a part of uh, the media. And I'm sure if he were to stay on the path that he was going to go on, that he would probably have some type of TV deal or he'd be aligned with some company, maybe Revolt or something like that, in which they would kind of have a media venture with each other. If not put on the TV, maybe something on which a la DJ Academics or Joe Budden with their show that they have with Complex, and that was kind of a big thing at the time. Or maybe he would have a podcast deal on Spotify or show deal or something like that. You know, with the way that Kevin Samuels was moving and the way that he was going about it, there was really the sky was the limit for him because he was so cognizant once again, and it draws back to what he was talking about and his image and how he conducted himself and how he was perceived so that he can maximize what all the opportunities that could be laid upon him and understanding if I come correct, if I dress and I look professional, if I speak in a way that is accessible to a wider audience. It's not me selling out, but it's making me more marketable. It's making me uh, more widely accessible for people to come in and absorb my message and absorb what I'm presenting instead of seeing something that's too unfamiliar and then people shying away from it because it's not what they're used to. And as humans, we always stick to what we're used to. And the fact that he was able to understand that is very important for all of us to know that, hey, the ends justify the means. Sometimes you gotta switch it up. Sometimes you gotta reinvent yourself. Sometimes you gotta uh, have a fashion overhaul. Sometimes you need to have a makeover. Sometimes you need a haircut. Sometimes you need to trim the beard. Sometimes you need to lose some weight. Sometimes you need to hit the gym. And that's not you compromising who you are, but understanding that in this life everything is fluid. Things change. We all change. The seasons change. It goes from summer to winter to fall to spring, and it all flows together, and it all makes things work at the end of the day in the ecosystem. And that's how it is with life too. You want to be fluid. You want to be able to move and to shift and to change and to redirect and to reposition. And the only way to be able to do that is to understand yourself and to understand how you're being perceived and to understand how you're presenting yourself to the world so that you can say, okay, how do I change this? What do I need to switch up now? How do I go about it to where I can prosper so that I can profit so that I can be ahead of wherever I'm at now? What do I need to do to get to that next level? What do I need to do to get to that next step? It's unfortunate that this has happened, uh, and I think that with anybody dying before the time that they're deemed, well, when they're young, because you never know. Like we all still have life to live, and he was just starting to get on. He was just starting to really reach. I wouldn't even say his peak, but you guys got to understand one thing, and I know most of you probably aren't gonna get to this point of the video because it's super long and you don't know me and I don't have a super expensive setup and crazy editing and all that. But for the one or two people that do end up getting to this point in the video, I want to relay something to you and I hope that you understand and I hope that you can digest it. Kevin Samuels died at the age of 57. When he died, he was the most famous, had the most money, had the most success, the most notoriety of his entire life at 57 years old. Not when he was 20, not when he was 25, not when he was 28, not when he was 29, not when he was 31, not when he was 34, not when he was 38, not when he was 46, not when he was 51, not when he was 55. Well, I guess he started popping up like what 2 years ago. So we just have 55. But all those years, these years in which we feel like we have to accomplish so much and we have to do and be so much by the time that you're 24, by the time that you're 25, by the time that you're 29, to see this man and to understand that he didn't even get close to his peak until he was 57 after all the time and all the work and all the trials and tribulations that he went to at 57. It was when he finally started to see his roses, when he finally started to see the promised land of where all his work was leading up to. I hope that there's somebody out there that can see that and understand that you have to persevere and like Nipsey said, this is a marathon. You might not get it right now. You might not be where you want to be at right now. You might not be where you want to be at next year. And it's sexy to look at all these viral tweets and these influencers, and they bought their house. They bought a mansion at 19, and they have a company at 22, and they have a Rolls Royce and an 8P and gold chains, and they're just so fortunate at such a young age, and it's glamorous and it's fun and it's sexy and it's envious or enviable to look at them but to know that just because that's somebody else's timeline doesn't mean that that's your timeline. Kevin Samuels, to the point where he wanted to be at 22. You think that he cares that at 57 he's finally there? Do you think that he is upset that damn I should have been like this 20 years ago, or do you think that he was just happy to finally achieve that, to finally start seeing that side of life, to finally get those experiences? And I hope that that sits with you, and I hope that that's something that you take in and really start to think and to understand that don't put so much pressure on yourself to be everything that you're meant to be. Life is a story. Life goes on. Life is long. For us to be able to play out, for us to fulfill our potentials, and to bring our dreams and manifestations into fruition. So, with this, rest in peace, Kevin Samuels. This is Dad Poppy. I'm signing out.